right, well, since these are times, so we're gonna just get started. We're gonna start with Jim, who is the founder and lead developer of Kryotek Arctic Innovation. So welcome, Jim.
Perfect. Thank you. So, as you mentioned, I'm Jim Coates from Kryotek, and I'm in Whitehorse, Yukon right now. And I'm actually one of the few people who were born and raised up in the Yukon. We're sort of a select club. I spent way too much of my life in school studying permafrost and Arctic engineering, climate change, and then discovered that my true calling actually wasn't as a scientist, but as an innovator. Growing up in the Yukon, we kind of had to make our own fun, and making our own fun also usually meant making our own equipment because it was unavailable up here. So I was innovating from an early age. I discovered that I could actually build things that had commercial value, and spent quite a few years making some fairly, I guess, some contraptions that ended up becoming business. So my partner and Astrid and I own Kryotek Arctic Innovation, and we started designing permafrost sensors. We invented a super lightweight drill rig, worked on machine learning software that predicts Arctic climate change impacts, and right now we're involved in building and testing sensors to detect approaching forest fires. So we've specialized in taking sort of baling wire and duct tape repairs made in the heat, or I guess the cold of the moment, and turning them into commercially valuable innovations. And along the way, we've learned quite a few lessons about turning a temporary fix into a permanent solution. So those of us who are lucky enough to live in the remote communities of the North get to confront a number of problems that we would never be exposed to in more urban southern locations. Once we're away from Juneau or Anchorage or Fairbanks, we're Whitehorse, we're pretty much on our own, and we get to deal with the extremes of natural hazards. So those could be fires, floods, ice, bugs, cold, you name it. And qualified experts and the appropriate equipment can be weeks away or simply not exist. Machines designed for more temperate climates, they break in the cold and they can't survive the rough treatment of wilderness use. So we generally just grit our teeth and deal with the situations facing us however we can. And if you look in any Yukon or Alaska junkyard, you'll see the carcasses of dozens of homemade contraptions pieced together from discarded machinery. And most of these just did their job once and not very well, but they probably saved the day in a situation where nothing else was available. For example, you might see an airboat that gets used to blow the mosquitoes out of somebody's yard, or spruce pitch used for removing blackheads before the prom, or pulling slivers out of dog paws. I've seen rendered moose fat, which makes a pretty good low temperature throttle body grease. There are certain types of crushed gravel that melt ice on the driveway, even when the temperature is way below freezing. Collapsible dog bowls make great gold pans. And the small scale gold mining industry alone is full of one-of-a-kind custom-made equipment that works all summer in the harshest possible conditions. The same goes for the fishing industry and the tourism industries, where small business people often build their own equipment and operate it commercially. So rather than hauling these temporary solutions out to the back 40 and letting the metaphorical willows grow over them, we can treat every crisis as an opportunity of invention. And while most bush mechanic style solutions are impractical, unrepeatable, or just downright dangerous, there will always be a few that can be turned into genuine products for export into the wider world. And everyone who comes up with an ingenious solution thinks they've invented something that could change the world, but bringing a product to market is really hard. It's a long road to commercialization with a professional, safe product that can be mass produced and marketed internationally. And in the North, we have few resources and even fewer professionals who specialize and have experience in product development. So the technology startup business model is the fastest and most effective way of growing a business in today's world. However, a well-funded, well-connected startup in an urban center still only has about a 10% chance of success. Add remote locations, inexperience, and less access to capital, and the odds are even lower. Most of the world's startups are concentrated in a few key urban areas, and rural inventors usually, or I know, they rarely have the contacts or the time and travel resources to get a startup off the ground. Most inventors are also not CEO material. It's a job description with some very specific skills, experiences, and personality types. Learning all the intricacies of a startup investment, finance, marketing, and development takes years, and this isn't the strong point of most inventors. So what help is there for isolated inventors? There's the emerging business model referred to as a startup venture foundry or a startup studio. So a foundry or a startup studio is a company that has essentially pre-packaged the startup corporate structures and have them in place. So they take promising ideas, examine them in detail, then hire a dedicated and experienced CEO to manage the company. The foundry has in-house legal, accounting, and technical staff, and the inventor comes to them, and if they approve, if they think that the invention has commercial merit, then the inventor options the rights to the foundry, who brings the product to market within a set time frame. The foundry finds the funding, they find the experience and the investment to make sure all the steps that are required to build a startup are executed properly. And the founder is often kept on as a technical consultant and a member of the board of directors, but they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of the business. So what I'd like to propose is, what if the North had a specific hardware innovation foundry? And while there are a number of accelerators and startup studios that already exist up here, they're largely focused on software. There's nothing wrong with software. It's easy to distribute, and the geographic limitations are less important. However, it can be developed anywhere in the world, and the competition is global. Whereas the specialized hardware that's designed by and inspired by the rigors of northern use can have a worldwide market, because the extreme conditions create robust equipment that can function well in even the most demanding environments elsewhere. So a team of experienced startup professionals with access to capital, know-how, and connections in the global market could make a remote inventor's vision a reality and bring these specialized pieces of equipment to other parts of the world that might have similar conditions and could really use them. So a foundry with an understanding of the challenges and opportunities presented by the North could zero in on and take full advantage of these innovations. So professional inventors, or just people with one good idea, could approach the foundry in a simple, non-intimidating manner. By giving new innovators an avenue to quickly determine if their idea has merit, and then have someone else take on the work of building a business around it, they can bring their ideas to life without completely disrupting the rest of their lives. So our company, Kryotek, we started trying to do everything in-house. In addition to the actual work of building and testing and innovation, we had contract engineers and lawyers and accountants and business advisors, and just a constantly shifting array of other professionals. And the innovation itself often got buried under the administrative burden, and we ended up burned out and frustrated as the communications required to manage that many people superseded the actual objectives of the project. So if we had had access to a foundry when we started, a huge amount of time and effort could have been put into creating better products rather than learning how to manage the process itself. So I think that by freeing innovators from the need to launch a conventional startup and everything that goes with it, foundries can produce better products with a greater chance of success. And rather than creating startup accelerators and trying to mold innovators into CEO roles for which they're not suited, why not take advantage of the division of labor and specialization that a foundry provides? Now, let's see if we can bring our ideas into reality without crushing creators under the burden of the startup corporate structure. So I'd like to just discuss starting a Northern focused hardware startup foundry. And it could be the crucial missing piece that allows the talented but isolated innovators of the North the chance to have their ideas brought to the wider world. So if anybody else is interested in talking about this and just discussing the potential, or if you've got a few stories to share about your own backyard innovation, feel free to message me in the networking hub. So there, thank you.
All right, that's our time. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Yes.
All right, so feel free to message him or meet in the networking hub if you have any questions. All right, next up, we got Ailis, who is the Executive Director of Great Palmer Chamber of Commerce.
All right, well, thank you. Thanks, Jim, for leading us off. It made me a little less nervous to watch you do your thing. So it's nice to see people here today. So I timed myself and I'm gonna do my best to honor that. So it's nice to see Rachel Roy from Sitka. She was one of the first people that I met when I took my job. So a little bit about the Greater Palmer Chamber of Commerce. We are getting ready to celebrate our 50th year in May, and I'm really excited that I get to be part of that. And our city is turning 70 this year, so it's big milestone years for our entities here in town. I work for an 11-member board of directors. I am the only full-time staff. I have one part-time year-round person and then one seasonal market coordinator. Our specialty is events and small business support. We are 313 members strong, and we encompass the Greater Palmer area. So that's Palmer, Hatcher Pass, Butte, Sutton, Glacier View, kind of this whole area in the Matanuska-Susitna borough. A little bit about me. I am born and raised in Soldotna, much like you are born and raised in Yukon, which is pretty cool. I'm also sort of a rarity in Alaska. A lot of people import here. So I lived in Juneau for 4 years. I'm an alumni of UAS in Juneau. Love that place. I also lived in Petersburg for 2. I lived in Palmer for about 13 years. 10 and a half of those years were spent working for the city of Palmer in the Public Works Department. And I also own a small business here in town, and I opened it 8.5 years ago. So I was on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, and then was hired as their executive director in April of 2019. So I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary here at the end of this month. I'm incredibly passionate about small business, community, and outdoor recreation. So we've had a lot of late season snow, and I couldn't be more excited about it. So, these are some of the events that we host. We're pretty busy. Like this is kind of the last of our downtime before we head into just a busy summer of all of these outdoor events. And then we also host a couple fundraisers in there too. So you can see we're pretty event focused, and we love bringing people to our town to spend money and enjoy parking in one place and walking all over town. If you've never been to Palmer, it's very walkable. We're surrounded by mountains in this glacier valley that we live in. So the thing that I'm here to talk about today is our Shop Palmer program and how that has helped us really invest in our local economy and our local businesses. So if you come into Palmer, you'll see our main street is pretty much lined with locally owned shops and eateries. We have a kombuchery, we have restaurants, we have great retail, and all kinds of little things in between, and a great yoga studio. We created this program based on an event that the Kryotek Chamber was doing, and we call it Shop Palmer. So as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, we've got our little stamp card, and that has all the participating businesses. And basically, for every $10 you spend, you get a stamp. And then once you spend 100, you get to drop that in a bucket. And then at the end of the program, we draw one of those cards, and we were drawing a $1,000 Visa gift card. People were really excited about that, obviously, because you can spend it anywhere. So the first year we did this, we had 16 participating businesses, and we had 36 in 2020, which was really exciting. The program is gaining traction every year, and we are becoming more and more recognized as a small business focused chamber. A lot of the history of the Palmer Chamber was more corporate focused on the bigger banks and businesses, but we've really shifted our focus onto our small business because we know that that helps the community thrive so much. So one of the beautiful things about this program is we have tangible metrics. So we count the cards from each business, and then we count all the cards that are brought in total. So it's a lot of counting and a lot of stamping the cards, but we're able to tell where the business was, the winning card was pulled from which business, and as well as count how many cards each business has and then the total financial impact. So we change up the design every year. So we wanted to take it to the next level. Obviously 2020 will be, we'll be talking about this last year and even into 2021 for the rest of our existence. But we wanted to make this program more impactful for our businesses. And so my board and I tried to come up with something to make it more meaningful and more impactful for the small businesses that are participating. So that brings me to the Palmer Bingle. So the Bingle, if you don't know the history of Palmer, in addition to, housing Indigenous people for a long time, pioneers, homesteaders, gold miners, trappers, everyone, it was a Matanuska colony, and it was a part of the New Deal by President FDR. And so they brought a bunch of people here and they said, good luck, and here's some stuff to farm with. Anyway, so there's a lot of rich history in Palmer from that project, but also thousands of years before that. So the the Bingles were used, they were a federally recognized currency that were given to the members of the Alaska Rural Rehabilitation Corporation. And each adult was given $30 and each child was given $5. So they weren't very well received because they weren't able to spend them very many places. So they only lasted about a year. And the picture down on the right here is a 10-cent bingle from back in the day. But as you can see, there's fewer than 200 sets left in the world. They melted the rest of them and probably did something more useful with them. But those bingle sets sell for quite a bit of money. So it's pretty cool to see those. We have a vintage shop here in town, and he has a full set, and it's pretty cool to see. So we took that idea and we brought it into 2020. So we designed these wooden coins and had them locally manufactured by a very brilliant artist here in town. We have two currency offerings, a $5 bingle and a $20 bingle. Our mint, we spent hours talking about this and how we could make it work for us and for everybody else. And so we put an expiration date on them. So this first mint that we did will expire at the end of 2021. So they went into circulation like mid-November 2020. So they're good for a little over a year. So how it works is people buy the bingles from the chamber. So they can call us and tell us that they want $100 worth, all in 20s or all in 5s or however. And then we distribute those. And so then they take those bingles and spend them as cash at participating businesses. And so one of our chamber benefits is being able to accept that as currency. And so then the businesses connect with us to cash in those bingles for, I like to say, good old fashioned American dollars. And so we're excited that the first year we had $15,000, 500, almost 16,000. We're really close to that, purchased by local people. And that's just individuals looking for easy stocking stuffers, businesses looking for employee Christmas presents, client appreciation gifts, all of these things. So we had 15,500, almost 16 purchased, and then we donated, the chamber donated about $8,000 worth, and we received some money from our city and our borough to help with the pandemic, and we had to put it into economic stimulus, stimulating programs, and so we figured this was a nice way to do that. So we donated about $8,000 worth. And sitting right now, we've received back about $8,000 worth. So there's still a fair amount out there floating in the world. Well, in Palmer, they can't be used everywhere in the world. So I wanted to show you guys a picture of what they look like. This is very Scrooge McDucky to me, if you get that reference from a long, long time ago. So they're just a simple wooden coin. They're bigger than a, let's see, I don't know, bigger than a silver dollar. They're about 1.5 inches or so, 2 inches wide. So you can see the $5 is in the middle of our water tower. Our water tower is kind of our iconic Palmer landmark. And we just got our Keep It Local, Shop Palmer, Alaska on the back. And People want to just buy them for collector's items, which is not our goal, but inevitably that's happened. So we're thinking this year we might shift towards more of a just a smaller one that doesn't have a value, that just has this year's design or whatever, because we want the money to be spent. We don't want it to be a fundraiser for the chamber. So so that's the Palmer Bingo program. So why this matters is we realized that the Visa gift cards could be spent anywhere. We have a Costco about 45 minutes from here, and it would be real easy to take that Visa gift card down and just do your shopping at Costco. Or maybe you feel like you need to spend it on utilities, or you need to pay other bills or whatever. But with it being the Bingles, like, you kind of get to treat yourself or give them to other people or whatever. So it encourages that, like, that spending on yourself, which can be good for our mental health. I feel like during the pandemic, a lot of us, probably one of the first things we cut from our budget was anything for ourselves, self-care, going out to eat, which was not really a thing in 2020 anyway, buying books or whatever. And so by giving people this, it's allowing them to treat themselves and to get to enjoy it. So we believe that it creates a deeper investment and commitment to Palmer. Whoops. And the success of our businesses. The Bingles are guaranteed money kept in our community, and we call it the semi-universal Palmer gift card. I can't see the chat, so I'm sorry if you're.
Well, that's 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
If you have any questions, meet up in the networking hub spatial chat, and I'm sure that Ailis would be happy to answer any questions, or send her an email. All right, next up we got Scott, who is the co-manager of Alaska Angel Conference. Welcome, Scott.
Well, thank you. Get set up. Oops. Get set up here. Can you hear my cat in the background? I don't know if it's coming through. No, yeah, he's very vocal. He complains about the service here all the time. So I'll go ahead and get started here. I'm Scott Bell, and I'm co-manager of the Alaska Angel Conference, and it's an organization that comes together. It's actually a limited partnership comprised of early stage investors, both people who are experienced and people who are new to it. And the mission of the Alaska Angel Conference is to increase the number of early stage investors in Alaska. And so we run a competition. We had 20 Alaska companies start. We're down to evaluating the 6 finalists, and we'll make a $100,000 investment in one of them in early May. And so there's a benefit to the entrepreneurs in Alaska, as well as basically increasing the number of early stage investors in Alaska. So why is it not? Oh, okay. So just real basics. What is a startup economy? So it's a mix of entrepreneurs, investors, business talent, research institutes, industry efforts, and government funding, intentionally supporting innovation and experimentation, and looking for opportunities to found and grow businesses. And I guess right now the question is, so why is it important for us to be looking to grow new businesses? And one thing is to look at Alaska's top industries. We have oil and gas, we have tourism and fishing. All 3 got hit pretty hard in the last year by the pandemic. Tourism and fishing should bounce back eventually. Oil and gas, unfortunately, is facing some long-term worldwide change in the economics of fossil fuels, more efficiency, alternatives such as wind and solar power that are really may really impact and are impacting Alaska's economy. And so one way to be boosting our economy is to think about ways to get some more diversity, get some thinking about some other companies that may be able to be developed here in some industries. And just looking back, like in the 1970s, the Seattle area's economy basically was based on Boeing manufacturing aircraft, timber, agricultural in the bigger Washington State area, and shipping. And the business leaders at the time were really actively looking for ways to diversify Alaska's economy. Seattle's economy. And But through the 70s, Seattle was pretty much in a slight depression. And then here's an interesting photograph. I don't know if you recognize these people, but this small firm in 1978 relocated from Albuquerque to Seattle. And of course, Bill Gates is in the lower left-hand corner. And this is the 11-person firm of Microsoft that moved in 1978. Again, a really small startup at the time. It, of course, transformed the Seattle economy. So you just really never know when some new idea may gain some traction and may grow. And so, you know, diversifying Alaska's economy it's something we've been doing for a long time. You know, we have a long history of innovating and thriving in this beautiful state. Alaska Native people innovated and you know, we're thriving here for a long time. Some of the early pioneers coming in, you know, staked each other's gold claims, not staked, but they gave them money to start up their claims. So there's been this history of supporting each other. And investing in these startup companies today is really a continuation of the efforts of the Alaska Native people and the early pioneers who were coming in. And so talking about how to support the startup ecosystem, there are many support systems in place now, but they are diffuse and coordination is not as good as it could be. I'm going to run through some of them because there really are quite a few. I mean, right now we have strong public schools. We have excellent and affordable post-secondary education through the UAF, the University of Alaska system, and it also a place of world-class research activities, small business development centers across the state. This Juneau Innovation Summit hosted by the Juneau Economic Council, and is also another example, as are the Fairbanks Economic Corporation and the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. Small business competitions, incubators and accelerators such as Launch Alaska are also helping to grow and develop ideas into commercial businesses. As I show here, UAF has a Center for Innovation, Commercialization, and Entrepreneurship. UAA has one that's very similar. And then there are even industry members such as Arctic Slope Regional Corporation's Energy Services Division, which has a whole technology and innovation group. So this mixture of industry, universities, research institutes, government support, excellent educational facilities, and experienced business people help create a situation of where we get more small companies developing. And again, local banks, credit unions, CDFIs, community development financial institutions, and also business mentors and early stage investors such as the Alaska Angel Conference are also part of this web that helps form an investor network and a network in which early stage companies can be supported, mentored, funded, and grow potentially into larger companies. So, I mean, one thing that I really want to stress, it's interesting to look at the way, you know, big corporations often are well established in they are well established in their market. They have a track record. They know the competition. They know their customers. And it used to be thought that a startup company was just a small version of a big company. So they were encouraged to develop business plans and make projections on how much money they were going to earn in the next 5 years. And it came to realize that really a startup company is a company in search of a business model. Often it's a great idea that a person or two or three have come up with, but at first they really don't know if there's much traction for their idea. And so really they need to be going out and testing their business model. And they do that by going out to customers and saying, so I've got this idea. If this is what it looks like, this is what it does, what do you think? And you might hear, well, it's beautiful, but we really have no use for it, sorry. Or I like it because I'm the mechanic using it, but my boss who pays for things, he's got so many other things to buy, this turns out to be really low on his list. So that type of searching is something that's really become ingrained in the startup community, is you get an idea and then you do a lot of market research to make sure you actually have a product or a service that there's a market for, because the number one reason startups fail is because they have not done enough market research. They have not developed a product that enough people want. So we, as Alaska, we have to start searching for some new business models in which to grow our economy, as the kind of the bulwark of our economy for the past 45 years has been oil and gas. And it'll be with us for quite a while, but overall it's slowly, I think slowly receding as far as a really strong business. And we have a chance and an opportunity and an obligation to start looking for some other, planting some other seeds, looking for ways to modify and grow something that might become a bigger business. And that's what part of the Angel Conference is doing, is trying to look for those small businesses. But there are also some other things that are happening that I think that Alaska's can really take advantage of. And one is the shift to the work from away business cultures. We've had a year of Zoom boot camp, and many companies have found out that it's working to have people working from home, that's working out well. And that I've got a friend in Seattle, a young man, and he's working for a big company that just shut down their office because they realized during the pandemic that they didn't need an office. And this could allow a real opportunity for Alaska to make us an attractive location for business and employees. We've got great, a great environment up here, a lot of young people, and it could be a great place for business to relocate to, and from which we could grow some new industries. And then more coordination between the many existing parts of Alaska's startup community, I think, would be helpful. You saw my long list of 4 slides of things that are there now, but more coordination would be helpful for that. And then public investment in ecosystem support systems, like some of those things like the schools and things like that, which will encourage more private investment in the small companies, which will make Alaska's economy more diverse and more resilient. So again, my request is that we really look at investing in small companies and see which ones take root to help us grow a more diverse economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to email him or meet on the networking hub later today. We're all going to go back to the main stage now, and I will see you there. Thank you so much